Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. About 2 years ago, I was invited to speak at the International School of The Hague. I made a choice to actually deliver that conversation as a Q&A, where students could ask me any and every question that they wanted to. So we started with light questions, and something happened that was very special and very surprising at the time. About 4 minutes in, this young girl stood up, grabbed the mic, she was looking quite angry, and said, "Do you actually plan to inspire us?" That moment, that question, led to a shift in the dynamic and the energy of the room. A beautiful conversation followed it. We spoke about inspiration and potential. We talk also about finding your mission and your purpose, about what it means to be responsible. We also talk about bullying. What does failure mean, and is it really failure or just a learning? Finally, we discuss the importance of knowing and finding your true self and authenticity. I did not make many changes on this audio on purpose, so I apologize for the quality of the audio, as when we were recording, it wasn't with the purpose of being posted on the podcast. In that conversation, I spoke to teenagers, and I think this piece of content can actually and hopefully touch and inspire many teenagers. This episode is dedicated to Miles, Yul, Ise, and Yanel.
And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Stephen Asei-Dantoni.
Thank you for the warm welcome. When Alexis talked to me about coming here and talk to you, I start thinking about different ideas of what I could talk to you about and what would be the subjects that would be interesting to you. And after thinking a while about it, I decided to do one thing. It's kind of like, how can we break the rules? And usually when I go to conferences or events and people are presenting and the audience is like kind of passive and listening, but I came here because I'm very interested into what you want to do, who you are, what's your passion, what's your mission, what's your purpose. Maybe you start thinking about it. I've started looking at the program and I've seen that it's quite deep in terms of like personal growth and the diversity of things that you can do. So what I would like to do, instead of starting and me talking, I would like to start by listening to you, and I would like to start by what usually is at the end, which are like the questions, right? So we could do a question-answer type of things. Any question that you would have, we could start from there, and I'm sure that organically and naturally, we're going to fall down into things that I've prepared already and different things that I plan on talking about. I was in Africa till April. I just got to the Netherlands like 4 months ago. 5 months ago? 6? And I was in Kigali, Rwanda.
What do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? So I'm working on a project about how can we make the people of the city of The Hague experience peace physically, and how can we influence that? How can we make people connect like between each other? Because usually we walk around the city and each one is doing their things. And I believe that one of the main reasons that where we have like the type of challenges and problems that we have in urban context is because we don't get to know necessarily each other on a deep level. And the idea is like, how can we create connection between people? Kind of what's happening here, how can we create it on a bigger level and between strangers?
What do you like to do in your free time?
Okay. I like to do many things. Most of my time I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, so a lot of times I spend it into it. I like to go to the beach in The Hague. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to read. I like to watch movies. I like to do sports. I like to do many things.
Are you single?
No, I'm not single. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is live on Facebook, by the way, so she's watching.
Are you planning to inspire us today?
Yes, I'm planning to inspire you today, but I think that inspiration can come from many parts, and a lot of times the way I see it is that I didn't want to come in as someone that will like tell you a lot of things, but I wanted us to contribute and to build that experience together. So I wanted to start from what are your questions. For example, what is your question? What would you like to know about inspiration, that you're going through right now? What are you curious about?
What's your biggest advice for us?
Thank you. That's a great question. My biggest advice for you is that the gift is you, and it's not about what you do, it's about who you are. I plan on talking about it, but it's not about what you do, it's not about what people try to tell you of who you are, because a lot of time people trying to define you. A lot of time people are trying to put you in a box, right? So I remember, for example, from my experience when I went to school, and nowadays I'm like a teacher, but for me, school was always like a terrible experience. I only had like bad experiences from school. I never had like teachers that were like encouraging me and telling me good job, Steve, and everything. Like I remember my first day of school, like when we learned how to read and everything, I raised my hand when the teacher asked a question, and then I answer it. And the teacher said, "Okay, thank you very much, Snow White." And I was like, "Okay, Snow White," and the whole classroom started laughing. And that's my first day of class. So I'm like laughing too, but I feel bad. So somehow it's like taking away things from you. And the rest of my school years, it went all the way like that. So I never really thought that I would be a teacher. I never really thought that I would do all the things that I did, because all the way people have been trying to put me in the box, define me. I remember being bullied at school. And I know in here there's probably some people going through it as well. I remember people like throwing rocks at you and telling you go back to Africa and everything. And then I look at them and I'm like, but you guys are from Morocco. I guess, no, but it's nothing against that, because I got a lot of friends from there, but it's just, my point was that a lot of time, and that's the thing that I understood like later on, is like a lot of time when people are like bullying you or treating you or criticizing you and everything, is that they're dealing themselves with some type of issues. And even though you feel like you are the victim, indeed, it's both people are like, these people that are bullying you are also the victim, because when you have confidence in yourself, when you feel like you are beautiful, when you feel like you are enough, you don't need to treat people and put them below. So my greatest advice that I would give to you is just be you. And as educators, as teachers, our responsibilities is for us to help you find what your gift is. What is it that you have to give to the world? Because we all have a gift. We're all here for a reason, right? And through our stories, through the tribulation, through different things, we discover like this gift, and we discover that purpose and that mission and that special thing that we have to give to the world. So it's just be you, and within what you have inside, just offer it to the world. That's what I would say. Yes.
I'm Cedric.
Hi, Cedric.
If you're stressed, what is your best way for relieving it?
A few months ago, I told you I came from Rwanda, and it's a long story, but long story short, I kind of had to leave the country from one day to another. So I went there with the idea of doing a lot of things and everything, and for a different reason, I had to leave from one day to another. I decided to come to the Netherlands because I had my family here. I had my cousin that was living here. So I came here, and that's why it's like so crazy, like thinking like a few months ago and being in front of you, that means a lot to me, like seriously. When I came here, I had to start from zero, and I went through a very, very bad period and a very, very dark period, what I call like the dragons period, and I will talk about the dragons maybe later on. I went down, depressed, sad, all the way to the bottom, gained weight, felt super bad. The key for me to come back up was to change my lifestyle. And basically what I did, one day I got tired of it, and I started meditation. That helped me a lot. Are there people that meditate here? Or ever try? Okay. So what meditation and breathing did for me was that it helped me control my thoughts. A lot of time, like I do that with my students a lot. I ask them to write down all the thought that they have about themselves in the morning when they first wake up for like the first hours. And a lot of the thought that they have are like negative. I'm not enough this. Oh, I'm doing that. Like even now as we speak, as we talk, a lot of people have very negative vision and negative thought about themselves. So changing that and being conscious of what you are thinking when you are thinking it can help you a lot. And like replacing those negative talk to yourself, self-talk, the things that we say to ourselves. I'm not enough this, not enough that. Oh, feeling guilty about different things and feeling bad about not being able to do that, or feeling bad because we feel like we failed or we're never going to be able to do anything, or because people are telling you things and you start integrating that story, because in the end it's all about the story that we tell ourselves. That's what helped me. And then meditation, diet, and sport. That's what helped me. And also your support, the people that you're surrounding yourself with. It's super important. If you are surrounded by negative people, then you're gonna be negative. But if you're surrounded by people that pull you up and that help you to go higher, then you'll be better. So it's like taking care of yourself and not being. I know, like we laughing and everything, but I know how tough this age that you're in is, because you have so much pressure. The pressure of like always looking kind of a certain way, the pressure of school, the pressure sometimes it can come from the family, sometimes it can come from other places. So I know this is not an easy period for you, but everything passes and it gets better. It always gets better. I don't know if my answer helped you, but yeah. Yes. What's your name? Natalie? Yes.
What's your passion?
I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about stories, and I'm passionate about having a positive impact on people. And I think it kind of comes from my story. So as I said, like I started teaching and being involved in education and innovation like a few years ago. And it was after doing various things, like I work in finance, I play high-level basketball, I was an entrepreneur, I did many things. And school, as I said, was never like something that I imagined doing. But now when I look back with my story, now it makes sense, because all the negative things that are happening to you in life, it's kind of preparing you for something. So I'm passionate about people, and I'm passionate about having a positive impact for various reasons. But I would say the main one, and the one that is my main driver, is when I was about, what's the average age here, like 17? 16? Yeah, 16. So 16 years old, going through school. We live in a small city in the southwest of France. And my parents, my father and my mom, and I have my brother, I have my sister. We all living together, and we live in this apartment in France. And when I was 16, I remember one morning we woke up, and my mom comes up screaming up the stairs of the apartment, and she tells us that our father just passed away. Our father just died. So it's kind of like, what do we do now? So from that moment, I remember perfectly we asking my mom, what happened? And my mom is saying, oh, it must have been an accident. But the reaction of my mom is kind of weird. So she tells us, yeah, it's a car accident. So all the family, we up on a van, and my mom taking us to the place where the accident is supposed to have happened, right? So we get there, and once we get to that place, there are like the cops, and there are like the firemen and everything. And we get there, and there are like this couple of friends from my father. And I'm like, okay, there's an accident, but I don't see no blood and everything. And the wife of the friend of my father tell me, you know what? People that hang themselves never leave blood. So that's kind of how I found out that my father committed suicide, right? So found that out, and that was a shock. But not only that, from that moment on, we didn't have that much. We were like middle class family. We didn't have that much, but we always like had enough, and always share moments together and everything. And from that moment on, the whole life that we have went upside down. And we found ourselves, my mom at the time, she had like a store. And we found ourselves not being able to stay in the house, in the apartment that we were. So we found ourselves like being homeless. And when we found ourselves being homeless, we were sleeping in the back of the store. So we had like mattresses on the floor, and it was my sister, my brother, me, my mom, and there was a cousin that was staying with us at the time. So it was around wintertime. It was one of the coldest winter that I've ever seen, like that we ever had. So we didn't have no warm water, so we had to shower with cold water. And at the same time, we still had to go to school and make sure that we appeared like everything was okay. But it wasn't. So I've been through the experience, even though now I'm like that, but I've been through the experience of going to places where they give you food, where like I've been through that. I know how it is not to have enough to eat, even though it was in France. And I remember on that Christmas, we had like a pizza for Christmas. And my mom, she had like 75 cents. And she wanted to buy some bread. And the bread was like 80 cents at the time. So she couldn't buy it. And at the same time, when I look back, and sometimes I talk with my sister about it, and we didn't have anything in that period, but we had each other. And from that perspective, we never really felt like we had this is the wealth, this is the ultimate wealth. Like I had my brother, I had my sister, I had my mom, I had my cousin, and we laughed so much in that period. Like I remember one time there was not enough food, and my mom, she's like, anyway, food is just like a thought, it's just a perception. So just imagine that you're having food at this moment and just close your eyes and imagine. And obviously it didn't work because we were like hungry and we started laughing. No, Mom, this is not working. You need to use another strategy. But she kind of introduced us at the time to meditation without knowing, and creativity, because when you don't have a lot, you have to be very creative. And from that, I guess, like most of us, we became very creative. But my point was that going through that experience, and my father, obviously, he had financial problems, and he decided that his gift to the world was not enough. He decided that the world would be better without him than with him, right? And when I came to the realization at some point in my life, I kind of took the other way. I decided that obviously maybe we don't have a lot, but the world is not better without me and I'm worth something. But I've always been like very interested into this, how do people get to that? And somehow like the model of society that we had, it was the 90s, very going up capitalism and very individualistic, and people not necessarily connecting like they should be. I really believe in the beauty of the human experience. And I think that somehow when people come through this, to these issues and these problems, it's also related by the model of society that we have. And I believe that if we are more connected, if we are taking care more of each other, then we can of course improve mental health, but also peace, because peace is related. The way that I perceive myself as a person is directly connected to the way I will interact with you, or then that I will interact with the whole classroom, and that I will interact with the whole world. Like the world is only like a reflection of ourselves, right? It's just a reflection. And we are a reflection of the world as well. So thank you for the great question. Yes. Tara? Any regret or? Any regrets? No, I don't have regrets, because I don't think you should. Everything is learning, right? And even something that seemed to be a mistake at the time or a failure, it's only there for you to get you ready for a next stage. I explained another story. I started a company in France. Years further, like I started a company in France with my former a friend from the childhood, right? So we start the company, we start selling things, and we were selling softwares and everything. And after a while, I'm like telling my friends, look, the solution that we sell into these companies, it was a B2B business. The solution that we sell into these companies, it's not the right solution for like the small and medium businesses. We need to develop our own software. Neither him or I were like engineers or computers or software programmers and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, we need to develop our own software solution. So I speak to him, and during a while I'm trying to convince him. After a while he decided to accept that. So we start like kind of designing and going through the logistics and meeting with different people. And our project was actually kind of eco-friendly because it was reducing the kilometers that on transportations for the companies. So it was super, like very eco-friendly. Long story short, the government of France and the region is kind of supporting the project. So now we're at the stage where we're about to raise money, raise capital, be incubated in different innovation space, and et cetera, et cetera. Right before we do that, my former friend tell me, Steve, I don't want to go on and I don't want to work with you no more. So at that moment, I have a girlfriend at the time, I have my apartment, I have my car and everything, and I kind of made the sacrifice to be there. So I'm at that point where I'm like, fuck, what do I do now? And, I can cuss, huh? I cannot. I usually cuss a lot. So what do I do now? And I knew one thing, and at that moment I knew one thing. I had to start everything from zero. So it was, for a little bit you feel like a total failure. Like, it's like, I always say I got Steve Jobs, right? Because when you know Steve Jobs, he got fired from Apple and started back again. But there's nothing more frustrating than being kicked out your own company that you created. This is like, I don't know, the worst you could feel. But what I realized is that up to that point, whether it was basketball or finance or working for different companies, etc., I'm a super quick learner. So you show me something and very quick I can pick it up and learn. And this is like a blessing, but this is also like a curse in disguise, because up to now, like, opportunities were presented to me and I took them when they presented to me, but it was never something that I was really passionate about. And in that moment, I said, okay, this is the situation. This is what's happening. What is it that I really want to do with my life? What is it that would make me wake up every morning and like I'm not working? What is it that, and from being a kid, I always wanted to like work with kids. I always wanted to work. Originally, I wanted to be a doctor, right? So from that point, I kind of went on a search, and I started like collaborating with NGOs and collaborating with UNICEF and other NGOs. And I kind of like it. I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to do that. And I went back to school and got my master. And during my master degree, I'm like, okay, I have to do an internship. So I go to do my internship in Nicaragua, in Central America. No Nicaragua. We got Cameroon, but not Nicaragua. Okay. So I go do my internship there. And there I'm working on a social innovation project with a group of kids. And basically I help them develop business models around their project, and they wanted to recycle plastic. And by recycle plastic and transforming it into art, also capacitate like some part of the population that were excluded, that were suffering from whether it was like the Afro-Caribbeans suffering exclusions, or handicapped, or HIV people, or gangs. Like, this was like, I was in a region that was quite complex. I do that, come back to France. First of all, I do that, and it works super well. meeting with the government and the province and few articles written about the project. Very innovative, congratulations. I come back, UNICEF asked me to give conferences and everything, so I do that. And now it's time to apply for jobs, so I start applying, and I don't get no response. And I'm like, okay, no response. So someday my sister said, okay, you don't get a response, so why don't you teach meanwhile? And I'm like, no, man, I don't want to teach. Like, this job is, no, it's not for me. Like, no. But after a while, I accept, and I say, okay, let me try to teach. And I meet with a former school that I've put together a program, UNICEF campus program, where like the students of the university have to set up activities for UNICEF on the campus. So I meet back with them. I say, hey, look, I'm coming back from Latin America. Over there, I self-taught myself innovation techniques and design thinking and all these things. And are you interested into doing a workshop? Just trying. And the school say yes. So I'm supposed to do a workshop with the students. And before that, I'm like, okay, I have to go meet with this group of students. And I think the day before, I'm like, what do I do with these kids? And I didn't really care, but I said, okay, one thing for sure. When I meet with them, I want them to have fun. I want myself to have fun, and I want them to experience kind of what I never experienced at school. And it happened, the day happens, and from there, I get to school and I get to the classroom. And what I felt in that moment was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I was made to be. And I was like, okay, this is my mission in life. This is my purpose. But it would have never started if everything that happened before didn't happen, right? So it started from what would be considered as a failure. But my point to you is also, even though we may experience failures or we may regret things, the story continues and it doesn't end. And there's always, like, when you look back, there's always like a connection between everything that happened to you. So that's why I don't have regrets, because everything is kind of, you cannot regret, you have to move forward and you have to learn from whatever could be mistakes, but everything is a learning. There's no such thing as real failure in my head. It's just a learning, and you just have to move forward from that. I don't know hope that answered your question. It was a long answer, but I had to go through the story. Sorry, Marielle? Ariette. The world? Potential, because I? Yes. To me, thank you, that's a great question. I always say that teaching is about helping people to become who they truly are. So for me, potential is helping someone to become who that person is, right? A lot of people go through life not necessarily playing a role or not necessarily knowing, like, what is it that I want out of this life and everything. And there's nothing more beautiful than when you're in a classroom and you see someone, like, all of a sudden, like, okay, I got it, this is what I want to do with my life. And like, when you see that light in a student, that's the most beautiful thing. So to me, potential is, it's helping someone to become, walking that path with that person to become who she or he truly is. And I believe that love is the most important factor to get there. Because it allows you, and I'm not just talking about love like I think love is like, it helps you to see behind the action of that person and to take that step forward. I've been in situations where I had like very conflictive people, And I think without love, without just judging them, but seeing behind, I would not have been able to understand them. So I think exactly, especially in this world that we live in, we have like a challenge of love and a challenge of proximity, a challenge of creativity, a challenge of like reimagining this world that we want to live in. This is the biggest challenge that we have and that you are going to have. Oh, by the way, you can call me Steve, Steven, but no sir, okay? What am I scared of? I'm scared of being scared. No, to me, when I feel like I'm afraid of something, and when I feel like this thing is like stopping me from doing something. I'm not saying like doing crazy type of shit or anything. I'm just saying when I feel like I'm scared or I feel fear, I try to go further than that fear and not let that fear stop me for everything in my life. So my biggest fear is fear itself. Because fear is just like fear is an illusion, right? It doesn't exist. It's just like a creation of your mind. It's just you imagining a story in your head of something that probably never happened. Like out of 10 things that you usually imagine about that can go wrong, like maybe one will go wrong. So it's just like telling yourself a story, is going back to the story. And talking about fear, I talked about the dragons before. And in the mythology, especially in the Western mythology, the dragons is what representing like the fear or the dark part of our humanity. So when you are facing a dragon, you only have like 3 choices, right? You can either not face that dragon, not fight it. You can be devoured by that dragon. It's when like fear is like taking over you and you start living a life that is not your life, and there's nothing worse than living a life that is not your life, or you can slay that dragon. So I chose to slay the dragon, and everybody has fears. It doesn't mean that I don't get scared. I get scared all the time. But by realizing that I'm scared, then you can go with your heart and go further. You have to get good grades to go to university. Isn't it messed up, right? Okay. So, I guess this is going to be the last time you see me here, right? Grades. There is about 60 or 70 years of motivational studies showing that grades is the worst thing you can do if you want to motivate people to do something. Just like bonuses, right? In finance, we've seen the result when you give bonuses to people, they don't work better, right? That's why I think the great thing about that program is that you don't have grades, from what I read. So it's just like what we call intrinsic motivation. You have like the motivation that can come from outside and the motivation that can come from inside. When you look at websites like Wikipedia or other organizations, you have these people spending crazy hours into their passion just because they love it, just because it makes sense to them, just because it has a purpose. And when people do that, there's no limitation. And grades, what it do is that people end up working for the grades, and it's the worst thing. And what I think about the most educational systems, most of them, I think they're not human enough, and they're not it's like treating you like you are going to work in the factory. Most of the systems and most of the schools. Obviously, this program is great because it's giving you an opportunity to express yourself. And this is really like, when I read through what you can do through that program, this is really like, nowadays, for example, in the Silicon Valley, they don't even look at your CV. They look at your projects. So I think a program like that can be something that in the future, because most of you, like 16, 17, the job that you are going to work probably doesn't exist yet. It probably doesn't exist. Most of you, like most of the jobs that we see today, a lot of them will disappear. So nowadays it's all about like the skills, what's called soft skills, even though they're not soft. It's about that. And I think like most educational systems are doing a terrible job about it, a terrible job of helping you to find what your gift is, who you are, because it's like you're just a number. And yeah, but hopefully with people like Alexis, it's changing. And I think, and really the luck that you have, and being here and coming from the type of environment that you are coming means only one thing. It means that you have a true responsibility to the world. Like, to be a leader is not about, hey, I'm a leader, follow me, listen to me. No, to be a leader is about serving. So your responsibility for the fact that you've been blessed with more opportunities, your responsibility to the world is how can you serve the world? How can you make this world a better place? But it's not done by with your ego, is not done by trying to dominate. In this 21st century, it's not at all like the 20th century. And I think that's why women and excels are going to be so great in this world that we are imagining, because the type of skills, like we lived, 20th century was very masculine. And by masculine, I don't mean men and women. I mean like hard and rigid and strong, and I'm dominating, and I'm big and you small. And this 21st century is more, how do we collaborate together? How do we create things together? So it's coming from a more feminine part, like the part of birth. So I think women are excelling and are going to be great leaders coming up. So I really encourage you. One last question. What's the best thing that have ever happened to? There's so many. I'm like, and going back to the question before, like about the things that help you feel better, gratitude, waking up every morning and being grateful, or going to bed every morning and being grateful. I would say right now it's just like the way you receive me and your energy. It's touching. So it really makes me feel great about being here and you having a really positive impact on my day. But what's the best thing? I mean, I have a son, so I guess my son will be the best thing that have happened to me.
Hi everyone, thank you for being part of this journey. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm just getting started with this podcast, and you leaving me a review helps a lot. Make sure you join the Facebook group to continue this conversation and discover exclusive content. Subscribe to the newsletter to find out more about the episodes and the guests.
You know, I say, oh.